So I run Northern Force Bullies, located outside of Toronto, Canada. I did, like many people, had no idea what a Shorty Bull was 10, not 10, 15 years ago. And I happened to be walking around a pet expo in Montreal, and I will always remember this. I walked around the aisle, walked around the corner, and I saw this dog sitting at the end on the edge of a table. And I looked at him and I said, wow, that is that is what I want. That dog's name was Rush. He was owned by now a good friend of mine, a breeder here in Quebec as well. Um, and I ended up purchasing a puppy off of him from the first litter in Quebec. I believe the first litter in Canada, if I'm not mistaken. So that was back in 2012. Our Gracie was born. I originally came into this just loving the breed, just wanting a pet. I never in a million years thought I would end up where I am today. So we purchased Gracie. We ended up purchasing several other dogs within the first couple years. We really wanted to show our dogs originally before we even got into breeding. So that's something that I did. The first dog I championed out was my dog Nelson, who is he's 10 now. He turned 10 in October. So we've been, through the whole range of raising puppies, showing dogs. Then in 2016, I decided I was ready to have a litter. So I bred a beautiful female, Hannah, that I got from Oscar at Shorty Bull Inc. And she was my first mama. And I kind of never looked back after that. I absolutely loved it. I loved the dogs. I loved working the dogs. I did, different things besides show. I did, competition with other dogs and trials and that kind of thing. And that was a lot of fun. I think I tried to dabble in a little bit of everything to see kind of where I fit in and to see how far this breed could go, because that was really interesting to me because it was so new and it was so unknown. Just to see, what can these little dogs do? And it turns out they can do pretty much anything. So it's been amazing. It's been such a fun ride. And then we started probably around the same time, I'd say around 2015, 2016. We started really getting into the look of the colored Shorty Bulls, which is a whole conversation in itself. But that's something that we really wanted to add to our program. So we originally got Prodigy, who was a chocolate male, who we still have today. Then we got into the blues. And again, that propelled us and our program in a totally new direction. I wouldn't say different because I think our expectations of Shorty Bulls and our expectations of ourselves remained the same. We wanted dogs that were functional, that were healthy, and that most of all, had great temperament and, corresponded to the Shorty Bull standard. I think a lot of people, when they get into a specific type or a specific color, unfortunately, a lot of the dogs lose breed type. And you see that not just in Shorty Bulls, but across the board in any breed. So that was something that was, non-negotiable for us. And I think we've done a pretty good job at following our own vision and aligning ourselves with the right people. But that's meant, turning down opportunities. That's meant, adding dogs to our program that we, in the end, never bred because for whatever reason, they didn't correspond to what we were looking for. And I think that that's a part of breeding that people don't necessarily understand or even talk about, is that things don't always go according to plan. And, you have to make calls. You have to decide, what you're going to do for the best interest of moving forward. And those decisions are not always easy, but I can say with good confidence that I don't have many regrets. So, I'm glad we made those choices. I'm glad we chose what we chose, and the fact that we're still around today, 11 years, almost 12 years in, kind of says a lot about not only how stubborn I am as a person, but also, it shows the quality of what we've managed to create. And I cannot sit here and say that we did it all on our own. We have a lot of people to thank, a lot of people that supported us, but we put in the work. We every day, still to this day, we maintain, a house and a kennel full of dogs. Being a breeder doesn't mean you breed a male and a female and have a litter. That I'm like, I will get a lot of flack for this, but that doesn't make you a breeder. It makes you someone who mated two dogs and had a litter of puppies. So I mean, it's important, to for us to make that clear to people that we're not fly by night people. We've made the efforts. I think we've done more than most, and I'm very happy where we're sitting today. Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I know you've had Jamie Sweet on here, and I think in terms of history, she is probably the best person to ask. But we get this question a lot as breeders, because most people come across our dogs, they think they like the look, they like the idea, but they don't really know what it is. So the Shorty Bulls were originally created to be a healthier, more athletic, more versatile version of your traditional bulldog. Um, so it's basically they did sequential breeding to eventually, by taking bulldog breeds like the Frenchie, like the English bulldog, breeding them together, slowly morphing that into the size, the look, that is the Shorty Bull today. So we're going back probably to the 90s at this point, where it really first originated. As I mentioned, Jamie Sweet is the creator of Shorty Bulls. I think you probably at this point have to be living under a rock not to know that, but anyone who's had the chance to meet her or talk to her, will understand why she's so passionate about the breed, because they are truly, in my opinion, the best breed of dog you'll ever come across. I've had American bulldogs, I've had old English bulldogs. I've through utter life choices, I've raised a lot of French bulldogs. Shorty bulls do not even compare. It's they there's just something in their soul. There's something so special and so human about them. Um, a lot of people joke around and say you can never just have just one, and that is so true. It's very addicting, because they're a small dog. They're a good size for young families, for people who live in smaller living spaces. Not all of us have the chance to live on acres of land in the country. A lot of people have townhouses, have condos, but they don't necessarily want a small breed. They still like the look and the temperament of a big dog. And Shorty Bulls are very much a big dog in a tiny little 35-pound body. They have big personalities. They certainly don't realize how little they are. They will go up against the world for you. I always tell this story. I have a good friend of mine in northern BC that owns one of our Shorty Bulls, and they have a lot of bears there. And this little guy growls and barks at the bears and the moose, and he would be gone in a split second if he ever acted on any of that. But he he doesn't care. And that's very true for most Shorty bulls. They have no fear. um, you know Balls to the wall. They do it and they love it, and I think that's why people fall in love with them, because they are brave and they are so loyal to their people. They love their families, they love their humans, and they're just easy. They're manageable. They're not a big size. They don't go through 10 bags of food a month. It's really a good it's really a good breed. I obviously I'm biased, but I I don't think I will ever breed anything else to this extent. I don't think I will ever, like, even if I didn't breed anymore, I think I would still own a Shorty bull for the rest of my life.
Could you just quickly cover what all breeds that are used in the Shorty Bull and why you like that, why you think that combination works?
Yeah, so originally it was mostly English Bulldog, French Bulldog, and Staffy. Obviously, you can see in the stamina and the longevity of the Shorty Bulls the impact of the Staffy, and I tell people it's such a small percentage. If you look back at old pedigrees, um, it's very very minimal, but for some reason those traits really really carried through. And I know from speaking to Jamie, and I hope I don't like misspeak on this, um, but I know when she bred, she had certain characteristics that she was looking for. So she did use a lot of English bulldogs, but she used English bulldogs that were out of the English bulldog standard. So they were usually smaller than your traditional English bulldog. They were more active. They didn't have the overdone characteristics of what you think when you think about an English bulldog. So that's I think that's also given them a lot of their braveness, because English bulldogs, as much as people think about them as being a very lazy dog, which they can be, um, they are very headstrong, and I think you see that a lot in the Shorty bull. The Frenchie, in terms of size, I mean, for sure that brought the size down and just gave them, Frenchies have big personalities also. I mean, they are similar in a lot of ways. um, so I think it's just that choice of those breeds, and not only those breeds, but I think the very specific specimens of dogs that were chosen in the very beginning. And I will say they did a great job at choosing those dogs, because you can still see those traits now, not just physically, but there are things that I've noticed that I never thought would be genetic, but in terms of personality and their temperaments and their reactions to things. I mean, we have dogs at home. We have three, sometimes four generations, and I see puppies and I think, oh my God, your grandmother did that. Like, how do you even know that? How do you even know as a puppy how to do that? Or you react the same way that your mom did when she was a puppy. So that's really cool for me to see from my perspective. But I think that also shows how consistent the breed can be. I think we'll get into this. I think a lot of people have strayed away from that. But, I think those specific breeds, yes, because they have really great characteristics that mesh well together. But I think it is the original dogs that were used that were chosen for specific reasons that I can't speak about because I wasn't there. But it's made it that this breed, when you say a Shorty bull, it's pretty much the same across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk about what health testing means to your program, and what are some of the uh, issues that Shorty Bulls face as far as health is concerned?
So, like I said, they were originally created to have fewer health issues than you find in your traditional bulldogs. I mean, they are living beings. Anything can happen, just like any breed. They're not bulletproof, unfortunately. Um, Luckily, I haven't seen major issues in my dogs. I think we were selective in choosing dogs from good places, from good breeders, and luck plays into that also. I'm not going to lie. It's, you can make the best choices and still have bad luck. I think personally, I have mixed feelings about health testing. I believe in it to a certain extent. I do think there's a lot of value to it. There's a couple issues when it comes to the Shorty Bull. There's not a lot of people that do health testing, so your comparisons are very few. So when they give you medians for things, the sample population is so small that it's really hard to have an accurate idea of what that actually means. I know, there are tests that you can order online now that clear your dogs from 200 and however many genetic flaws. And, those are great. I mean, I have used them on my dogs. I have clients that have used them on their dogs, and it is interesting. Like, I'm a big nerd in a lot of ways, so I do find that actually interesting to see, to read the reports. Um, I have a perspective where my dogs act like dogs. They go outside, they sniff grass, they drink fresh water, they get lots of exercise. They're treated like dogs, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Sometimes people think that that's a negative thing. I don't. I think they have a life that a dog should have. They're treated very well. Don't get me wrong, but they're not overly spoiled either. So they do have to. There's a minimum that's expected of them. And my dogs live to be old. And I think that speaks more to me as a person than any test that you order online, any swab that you put in your dog's mouth. I mean, look at people's programs, look at people that still have their dogs 10, 12 years in. Um, look at how the females whelp. Are they good moms? Are they healthy? Are they having healthy puppies? I don't have, in litters, I don't really have runts. I mean, granted, they're not huge litters, but we don't have dogs that struggle. We don't have, even adults. Like, we don't have adults that have unmanageable allergies, for example. That's a huge one now, that every dog out there has allergies. Is it luck? Am I a magician? I don't know. But my dogs, and we have several dogs at home of various ages, um, they're fine. They're active, they're not limping, they're not struggling to live. And to me, that is so much more important. And I know I've lost clients because of health testing, and that's okay, because I'm not going to go against what I believe in either. But I don't see issues. And like I mentioned before, several generations in, you would see the issues, and it wouldn't be a very viable business model if we were breeding unhealthy dogs. We offer health guarantees on our puppies, so we would be constantly replacing dogs. We would be constantly troubleshooting and having problems and having issues. And yeah, they're living beings. Things can happen. There are dogs that have issues. There are some of our dogs that have issues, dogs that we've sold that have come up with this most random thing. It happens, but it doesn't make it across the board. And I think that I'm happy to share that with people. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not embarrassed that I don't do this full gamut of health testing. I stand by my dogs. I stand by my breeding program, my reputation, and I think that speaks for itself. So, I think people forget that there are certain things also that, like, if you breed, if you test your original breeding stock, like for example for HC, which is hereditary cataracts, um, all of our foundation dogs were checked for that. None of them had them. So you don't have to retest every dog every time, right? Like, those are things, they're literally hereditary. It says in the name. So you don't need to be constantly testing, for example, your keeper puppy out of the litter. those are things that were done years and years ago, and you're set for a long time if you do those things. I've seen dogs that come back clear of all genetic faults. That's wonderful. And I applaud breeders that do that, because it is a lot of work. It's a huge financial investment too. I mean, let's be real, when you have a breeding program and you're having to test dozens of dogs, that's a lot. But then I see, the dogs come back clear of everything, and I look at the dog. Well, the dog has no breed type. it can't walk. It can't breathe properly. So, what are we looking at? We're looking at a test result, which is fantastic. Good for you for doing it, and great for the dog not having that. But the dog in front of me is also a train wreck. So are you breeding it because it's clear of all genetic faults, but the specimen itself, it to me is not a breeding dog? Or are you, like you said, using it as a marketing tool and be like, yeah, I'm breeding this dog because it's genetically clear of everything? So it's kind of, it's a rabbit hole that a lot of people fall down. Um, I, you know, I've had this discussion 100 times with potential clients, with other breeders. Um, I think everyone has to find kind of where they're comfortable at, and I'm not saying I won't, decide one day to health test all of my dogs and get them all OFA tested, and I might decide to go that way. Um, Part of it is curiosity. Part of it is, is it what's going to be expected of me? Maybe. I don't know what the future holds. I trust my dogs. I trust my veterinarian. um, I trust what I have in front of me. So far, I haven't had anything that's made me go, oh my goodness, this went completely left field. And again, is it the right choices that we made, or is it pure luck? I don't know. Again, time will tell us that too.
Yeah, for sure. And I, like I said, it's still new and
It's very new, and I think it's still, that in itself is evolving, and I think, what we see today is not what we're going to see 5 years from now. When I first started with Shorty Bulls, health testing wasn't a thing. It didn't exist in Shorty Bulls. It didn't exist in most bully breeds. um, I mean, the first time I heard of it was through like the American Bulldog world, because they did do a lot of health testing, but that's a lot because a lot of them are working dogs. They're hunting dogs. They do, various things. So that was super important, and it was, very much popular, and it still is in that breed today. But now I see micro exotics being health tested, which I never thought I would see. But it's great if they are. It's more power to you if you do it, and your dogs are cleared. I mean, that's amazing. I wish everyone the best. I'm not here to criticize anyone. I'm just saying, if the question is what do I do, that's my personal position on it. And I don't frown upon someone who does it. And there are some people, I think, that maybe should learn how to look at their dogs instead of just relying on a test. But I mean, there's got to be a balance, and I think, like you said, it has to keep evolving to see where everyone fits in there.
this kind of brings up a thought in my head, like how important is mentorship uh, for new breeders? How important was it to you when you first started breeding?
I think it's super important. I think you can tell pretty quickly the people that have had no guidance. Um, And I mean, to me, mentorship is not just necessarily in the breeding community, but it's also in the pet community. There's a lot of people that purchase a dog and they have zero support after that from the breeder. And I think that that's super unfortunate, because, and this kind of ties into health testing too. If you do have an issue, for you to be able to go back to the person where you purchased the dog and ask them, have you ever seen this? Have you heard of this? Is this something common? that can be very helpful and it can be very appeasing because generally speaking, people love their dogs and they get very upset if they think that something is wrong. So it's important for the breed itself, and because I feel like there's not many of us that have been around for a long time. There's a lot of new breeders. The mentorship, comes into play because we need to be able to tell the next generation of people kind of what's what. And not like about the breed, but also how do you go about it? How do you breed these dogs? How can you be successful? And I've been super lucky to have worked with other kennels that where people have genuinely turned into some of my best friends. And I know that sounds so cliche, but it's true. There's people that I've Carrie from Devil Mountain is a big one. We purchased the dog from her many years ago. I speak to her almost daily. We speak about dogs, yes, but she knows my children. She knows my life. I know hers. It's evolved into something more. And I think building that trust and that relationship with people is priceless because I know that if I ever have any questions, I can go to someone like her, someone like Oscar from Shorty Bullies. They've been around for a long time. Jamie is another great one, and I keep throwing her name in the conversation, but you know, they have history, they have experience, and just like anything, it's nice to have someone to look up to. It's nice to, you know, have someone that you can trust because I know that if I ask them, it's going to be an honest answer, no matter what the answer is. Um, I'm not out to get anyone. If their answer isn't one that I like, then too bad. I mean, that might happen somewhere down the road. But if you don't have people to count on, it's going to be a very, very long journey. And I think the people that lack mentorship are the ones that are going astray. They're the ones that are being very kennel blind because no one is being honest with them. No one is telling them, you know what, maybe that dog, it's not quite there yet, or it might never get there. And I think that that's why that we do see poor quality. And I'll talk about the Shorty bulls, but obviously this applies, to everyone. But I think that's why we do see poor quality dogs because someone at some point should have just said, I don't think that dog's breeding quality. But we live in a society of social media. You have 44 likes on Facebook. Oh, well, that means I should breed the dog. It's a really backwards way of thinking. And I feel like if someone would have sat a lot of these people down along the way and been like, you know what, like, this is what your dog's lacking. This is what you need to do. The same goes, and we talked about this a little bit before our interview, people selling puppies. A lot of people are absolutely unable to sell puppies right now. And the market is very much a buyer's market, as you said. So, anyone looking to purchase dogs, this is a golden opportunity because people don't have marketing skills, they don't have sales skills, they especially don't have a following. And I see a lot of breeders that are ghosts until they have a litter to sell. And then they pop up and they flood your feed every single day with puppy pictures because all they want to do right now is, and I don't like the word dump, but at this point that's kind of what it looks like in a lot of cases. They want to rehome these pets as soon as possible to whoever. And we're a week before Christmas now. These Christmas deals, these fire sales, it's unreal to me. And I think it's so unfortunate because what's going to happen to these dogs in the long run? The mentorship again, like would be greatly helpful in just explaining to people, how do you market yourself? How do you market your breeding program? If you haven't sold a litter, please, for the love of God, don't go breed another dog and have another litter. Like it's all of these things, except that sometimes when you make comments like that to people, it's taken as criticism. And, I have tried to help people through the years along the way. And maybe I've been a little too honest with them, but I just feel that, those of us that have had a breed like a Shorty Bull for a long time are very protective of the breed. We want to see it do well. And if it doesn't, I mean, it hurts all of us. I'm super fortunate to have a following of people. We've had a waiting list for 6 years now, and we still have people on our waiting list. Granted, I'm not pushing out 10 litters of puppies a year, and that's by choice. But, I'm happy to know that there's people that are expecting a Shorty Bull in 2024, and I'm happy to work towards that and get them that perfect puppy. It takes a lot of stress off of us as breeders too. I mean, if you're breeding and you have all these puppies that you can't find homes for, and you're out all of this money, and it costs more money to keep them, like it's a very hard circle to be stuck in. And people, I hope people know that they can and they should reach out for help, that they shouldn't just sit there and kill the market for everyone, because that's kind of what ends up happening. They end up having the $1,200 puppies because they need to rehome them, and it's not a $1,200. I mean, like, that's an arbitrary number. I really don't care what people sell their puppies for, but you know, puppies going for cheap is not a good sales tactic in the long run. That that's super important. And I get a lot of flack for this too, but breeding dogs is a business. I know they're living beings. I know they it's not about making money off of them. It's just about building it up with a business model. And I mean, take the money aspect out of it for 1 second. It's just about, it's more than a full-time job. It's, like, to us, it's 24/7, 365 days a week, a year. It's, we don't have family vacations. We don't go anywhere. We, like, I can't speak for anyone else, but I know, like, our family has sacrificed a lot for this dream. And our kids know, like, when we have puppies, it's all hands on deck. If anything happens, I've put my kids in the car in the middle of the night because I had to go to the emergency vet. They learn very quickly about life and death, and I think that is a beautiful lesson for them, and I'm proud that they learn it. um, I'm proud that they've grown up around it, and hopefully it teaches them work ethic in the long run too. But it's not a hobby, and I get really insulted when people call it a hobby, because to me a hobby is knitting. It's not like you're dealing with a living being. Like, if you can't get out of bed one day, then that's really too bad for you. You have to get out of bed anyway. I mean, not like, I don't want to put my personal story here on exhibit, but I mean, I've gone through having children, I've gone through moving, I've gone through, you know, like, lost friendships, grief, like, all of these things. And at the end of the day, my dogs were still fed and let out every day. They're still, I mean, obviously there's a team. I'm very lucky to have a wonderful husband who loves this almost as much as I do and supports me in it. I think that is super, super important. But it also means that it's not a hobby, it's a lifestyle. Having dogs, being a dog breeder, is 100% a lifestyle. um, and then there's the whole financial aspect of it that you brought up too. I mean, the dogs have to be a viable business. The way that I see it, and I think what most people hope for, is that the dogs pay for themselves. So whatever money you generate off of the sale of adult dogs or puppies or whatever, that you reinvest back into your breeding program. I think that's the ultimate goal. Does that always happen? No. You pull money from other places, usually, but it's if you're going to make it viable, and if you're going to, eventually not be always in the negative, you have to see it as a long-term project. If you buy a male and a female for X amount of dollars, you breed them, you sell the puppies, and you think, oh, I made money, then you're not in it for the right reasons, unfortunately. I think, if you take that money and you go buy a motorcycle, that's great. I mean, I'd love a motorcycle, but that's just not a long-term viable way of doing things. I mean, we've taken money from dogs and bought other dogs. We've paid vet bills, for example. Like, it's just all of these things that we have to do with the dog money. And but we also work for it. I mean, if you follow us on social media, like, we post daily, we answer people right away when they message us, we give people as much information as we can. And for every person that ends up purchasing a dog from us, we've probably spoken to 30 others and just given them information, and they either didn't buy a dog at all or bought it from someone else, and that's fine. I'm actually very happy to do that, and I would much rather do that and know that they have the information, the proper information. But it's full-time work. It's I don't know what time at night now, and I'm still working, and we're still doing this, and you have to love it. You have to be in love with it, but you also have to be realistic and work it like a business and be smart. And I know you mentioned this earlier. It's about the dogs. Yes, it's about having a beautiful dog, but you have to be a good person. You also have to be nice to people. And I think that's a very basic concept that's unfortunately lost sometimes, of, people just are rude and it doesn't make anyone look good, and you do lose out on sales. You do lose out on potential clients down the road by acting that way. Again, I mean, this goes back to mentorship. I think there's a lot to be said in that aspect too, of how do you treat clients? How do you take care of situations that are unfortunate? We all deal with them. We all deal with problematic situations, problematic clients, problematic other breeders. You have to be able to handle it, and I think having a little bit of class goes a long way, instead of just going on a social media blast. I don't like the word change so much as I would say evolve, because it's still evolving. I think any good thing in this world needs to evolve to get to where it needs to be. Um, I think the the biggest evolution is probably the overall expectation of people on the dog. I mean, we can get into specifics too. I think when it first started, there were so few dogs, and they were so, for the most part, very consistent. There were two distinct lines of Shorty bulls, and you could tell right away which one was from where. I see that still now with specific programs. Like, you'll see a dog and you go, oh, okay, yeah, that's from that breeding program. And that's, personally a goal that I want to achieve, that someone sees my dog one day and be like, oh yeah, that's a Northern Forest Bullies dog, in a good way, of course, not like an, oh my God, that's a Northern Forest Bullies dog. So there's that. I mean, color is a big one. I think now people have gravitated also to a more laid back look. So the dogs are a little bit chunkier, they're a little bit heavier, a little bit lazier, and maybe that's partly due to we're all getting older. Maybe we want lazier dogs and we're kind of becoming lazy ourselves. There's fewer dogs that I would consider the working Shorty bull, which I think is unfortunate, because I think that's such a cool part of the breed. That's such a unique thing that they can do. And yeah, like I said, color is the big one. Like anything else, you saw lots of brindle and cream dogs back in the day, and that was great. I mean, I love a brindle dog. I always have. I still talk about, I've never produced a cream dog, and that bothers me, which is the stupidest thing because everyone is on a quest for, crazy stuff. And I would just like a really nice cream dog that I've never yet have. I've had adult cream dogs that I've purchased. I've never produced one. And you saw that a lot. And the red fawn, so all of these things you actually see less of. Some people who produce them still produce them. Jamie will always be known for a very specific look. That's different than like Oscar built his whole entire program on the chocolate Shorty Bowl, and that's what he's known for. Now he has blues, he has tries. And I think to be able to do that without losing sight of the standard, without losing sight of what a Shorty Bowl is supposed to look like, um, I think that's super important. I think there's more variations of the Shorty Bowl now than there were before. Like I said, there's the ones that are of a less athletic look. There's those that are still, a little bit more agile. And personally, I like a mix of both. In an ideal world, I think we all, want to take two dogs and make one out of them. And that would be the perfect dog. I don't think the perfect dog exists, which is why we're all sitting here still after so many years trying to achieve perfection. But I love that it has evolved enough and gained enough traction that people expect more from us now. They expect, you know, not just, oh, I want a Shorty Bowl because it's new. They're like, no, I want a Shorty Bowl, but I want it to be healthy and I want it to be able to do this and able to do that. And I want it to be this color. And, people put in, it's like going to the restaurant. Like they put in a very specific order and we just scramble to try and make it happen. But like I said before, I think a lot of the traits that were included in the very, very beginning are still there. I think you need to look for them. I think a lot of people, by breeding mediocre dogs, have diluted the quality quite a bit. And I'm by no means saying that every single one of my dogs is perfect. I have dogs that I'm sure other people don't like. I've produced dogs that I personally think I could have done better. That's me being critical, and I think that that's important as a breeder. um all of my dogs live in homes and they're loved and they're cared for, and that's, at the end of the day, all that matters. But I think from a breeding perspective, if you're going to breed dogs together, they need to be top notch, and a lot of them aren't. Is that because people don't want to see it? Is it because they can't see it? I'm not sure. I think, and maybe we can touch into this a little bit too, but I don't believe every dog should be sold with breeding rights. That's another big thing. People pay more money for a dog with breeding rights, so they think they can breed it, even if the dog doesn't turn out to be what it's supposed to be. Um, they breed it because they figure they can, and that has brought the quality down. It's made it that I find the dogs are less consistent today when really they should be, because you're so much further on in the evolution that those looks should have been locked in. I mean, I think in terms of temperament, it's pretty good. I think they're easy dogs. They're manageable. You don't really see many that are like overly aggressive or that kind of thing. That's just not really a Shorty Bowl thing. Anyways, that I've come across. But they are drivey. I think that drive needs to be managed. If you have a dog that is very drivey, you need to be able to channel that properly. But it's just, I find a lot of people, because they're so new, don't remember what it was before. They don't remember the dogs hanging from the spring poles and the dogs doing bite work and, all of that. That was like one of the things that attracted me to Shorty Bowls, because it was such, it was so amazing to watch. And it was so cool to think that this tiny little thing is trying to take down this decoy. So, I mean, evolution is a good thing. I think a lot of good has come from it. I think it's much more mainstream now. I think it makes our job marketing the dogs a lot easier. But it also means that because there's so many more to choose from, they're not all where they should be. I mean, back in the day when there were 3, 4 breeders, all the dogs were fantastic. And I mean, no one can dispute that. Now, the more people get into it, the more they do, the quality goes down. And that's the unfortunate part of evolving a breed. It's not for everyone. And that's okay. I mean, knock on wood, like I've never had a whole litter of land sharks. I've had, me I mean, depending on the parents, like we have parents that are drivier, and I do disclose that to people. If people come to me looking for a puppy, my first question that I ask them is, what are you looking for? I mean, whether you get it from me or from someone else, it doesn't matter to me, but please tell me what you're looking for, because that will help me direct you. There are people who do show dogs extremely well. There are people that do working dogs extremely well. So I like a balance of both, but depending on what the person wants, then if you want a drivey dog, I can tell you, okay, well, get a puppy off Callie. Callie is crazy, and that's in a good way. But like that kind of thing. And I think being honest about that is important, because then you were talking, it made me think of like the whole show world is totally different. The expectations of judges about shorty bulls are not necessarily always what you would expect. We've been lucky here in Canada to have a lot more shows in the last couple years. So it's been really fun for us to be able to go out and show our dogs and kind of see, what are judges liking? What are they giving titles to? And I think that that's been a really interesting experience. And it's humbling in a lot of ways, and I know a lot of the judges are still learning about shorty bulls also. So it's kind of funny to be in a ring being judged by someone who doesn't really know the breed while you've done the breed for a decade. It's kind of a weird place, but I think a good judge should know dogs regardless of the breed. So in terms of form and function, and they can give you really important feedback. So that's another thing, if people are looking to show their dog, then that's a totally different conversation than, if you want a drivey dog, because, athletic dogs are not necessarily what is predominant in the show world. Um, so, I mean, there's just so many variables, and I think that's why it's extremely important for people to have conversations, for breeders to not just be like, oh, I have 4 puppies available. Which one do you want? There has to be more to the conversation than that. And I'm happy to hear that there are a lot of people like you out there that ask a lot of questions, that shop around, that it's I would much prefer have people like that. I have people that ask me questions for 2, 3 years before they buy a dog, and eventually they do buy a shorty bull from us, because they were satisfied by the fact that they got all of their answers over a time period. And to me, that's really gratifying, because it proves my theory that if you support people, they will also support you back.
Here's kind of might be a controversial question that you may not want to dive into, and I appreciate that. Um, what I've noticed with the Shorty Bull, which is kind of concerning, I guess, uh, is they kind of been taking on this exotic bully look, and I don't know if that's because of crossing, or is it because that's the look that's become more popular and marketable. Uh, I don't have anything against an exotic dog if it's correct looking, but some of these examples that I've seen with shorty bulls are not very correct looking. Am I off base?
No. And yes, this is very controversial, but I'm here for it. So, first of all, shorty bulls don't look like exotics. Exotics look like shorty bulls. It's the other way around. A lot of exotic programs that I will remain unnamed have used shorty bulls in their programs. And that is why a lot of people think, oh, the shorty bulls look exotic, when it's actually the opposite. But that's a story for another day. I think the overdone look, like I think what you're, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I think you mean by like an exotic looking dog is like the overdone features, the overdone bowed legs and, you know, 2 inches off the ground, and like they lose a lot of the function. Um, I don't want to name names. I don't think like this is the place for that, but
No.
I'd be curious to kind of see an example of that because I haven't seen it so much in the Shorty Bulls. I think a lot of it is also a little bit of photography trickery. I think, you know, people can make, you know, an extreme dog look even more extreme. And, you know, a lot of people just go for that look. And, you know, a running joke in my family is the fire emoji. So, you know, you see a dog, it has 20 fire emojis under the picture. You know, that's funny to me. Like it doesn't, it's not really a gauge of anything. I haven't seen that so much in the Shorty Bulls. I can think of a couple off the top of my head that are overdone, but to be totally unfunctional, I can't really think of any. You know, I mean, it's personal preference too. I mean, I like a bully dog. I think like Shorty Bulls have to have substance. It's a Shorty Bull. Like there has to be bull in there. There has to be, you know, certain girth to it and a strength to it, and it has to have like this bulldog look. Um, no one wants like giraffes either, so it's kind of you know this healthy balance of both. But I think maybe those dogs are they even Shorty Bulls? Like that's kind of what I'm wondering at this point. Like where do they come from? Are they people that are marketing them as Shorty Bulls, but they're actually not? Because like that happens a lot too, truthfully. So it's I think function is something that Shorty Bull breeders have been very aware of. And it's really like, to me, it's what sets us apart. I mean, having a functional bulldog is the whole marketing of it. It's actually, it's a huge part of the breed. You know, I have super bully dogs that are extremely functional that you would look at and think they never move an inch, and they do. Um, so again, is it just like an Instagram picture that people are looking for likes? Is it just, you know, is it just about that, or is it actually truthfully overdone? Because I've seen a lot of dogs in pictures that I'm thinking, wow, like this dog is extreme. And then I see it in real life and it like yeah, it's bully, but it's not at all what I expected from the picture. So I think there is unfortunately a lot of that. I mean, the pandemic created a lot of, you know, social media warriors and social media kings and queens where everything is just a picture. Um, but, you know, I think it's important to go out in real life and actually see the dogs, see the breeders. Yeah, and the thing, like in the Shorty Bull standard, there's no minimum height. There's a maximum height, but there's no minimum height. So I can understand why some people might take advantage of that. The one super important thing that I think is really overlooked in the standard is where it says that the dog has to be proportionate. And that's, to me, that's kind of really the base of the pyramid, is to, you know, have a dog that has proper proportions. So if it's a little bit taller, then it looks different. You know, my dogs that are say 14 inches look very different than the ones that are 11 inches, right? Like they have the same features, they have the same breed type, but they don't look the same. But I can make them look the same in a picture. That's kind of where what I'm coming to is
Mm.
seeing the dog, you know, next, and a lot of these people post pictures and you don't see the dog next to anything, so there's no point of reference. You know, is it, obviously you see the grass, like the grass is a certain length, but you don't necessarily see it next to another dog or a person, or and that's something that I get asked a lot is, can you send me a picture of you next to the dog,
Hmm.
or a something like a chair, because it's so hard to imagine what they actually look like just based on a picture. And I agree with you. I think the extreme bowed out, overdone. I actually think it looks very sloppy. I don't like that look. Um, I like I like a bully dog. I love a bully dog, and always will. But it has to walk. It has to be able to stand up. It has to be able to move. And again, this goes back to our whole mentorship conversation too. If you've never left your house and you've never seen various shorty bulls from various areas, from various programs, it's going to be really hard for you to fully understand the breed. If you've only ever seen dogs from one breeder and they weren't so great, then that's your basis of the whole breed. Then how are you going to learn from that? You can't. You're going to get stuck in this mindset. Um which is why, if you're going to breed, I think you should look at different breeders. I think you should, ask for videos. Obviously, like geographically, people are spread out, but at the very least, look through the whole Facebook page, look through the whole Instagram page, see how they've evolved. If what you see is only goes back 7 or 8 months, or if what you see are only puppies for sale, that's kind of a big red flag. Look for people who are out and about with their dogs. Like before the pandemic, we used to do the Canadian Pet Expos. It was amazing. Like we met so many people through that. Like we advocated for this breed. We met our clients through that. We met, so many people, and we did shows with our dogs. And and I tell people, come to the show. Don't come to show your dog if you don't have a dog, or if you don't want to show, but just come see our dogs. Come see them in person. Come interact, and you'll see that maybe they're not what you expected from the picture, for better or for worse. I mean, sometimes you see something in person and you don't like it, and that's okay. But sometimes it turns out better than you expected. Um, but again, if people want to trash a breed, they will, and they're going to do it behind closed doors. I think, again, the shorty bull community is still reasonably small. It's still pretty critical of itself. Um, so if you ask around, I think you'll quickly find out, who are the people that are doing it right, and who are the people that are maybe going for a look that isn't really what people are wanting.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Thanks for answering that question. I appreciate that. What registry do you guys go through, and what's the reasoning behind that?
So originally they're so okay. The short answer is our dogs are registered with the BBC, the Bull Breed Coalition. A lot of our dogs are also dual registered with the ABKC. Um, that was also for show purposes, because the ABKC hosts shows. We have dogs that are registered with BRC as well for show purposes. Um, the There were originally two registries, so the BBC and the BBCR. So we have a lot of dogs that are BBCR registered as well. The BBCR, as far as I know, no longer exists. So it's kind of not really something that we pursue at this point. Um, I think it's important to have founding registries, especially for breeds that are still pretty new. Um, and I appreciate that other registries like the ABKC, for example, honor that. So you can't just go and single register a dog. You have to provide paperwork from a founding registry, which I think is super important. I, very honestly, a lot of people that we sell dogs to the pet homes don't even really realize they have paperwork, or even, ask about it, because they just want a great dog. To me, it is important to have the dogs registered. It makes it legit. It's as simple as that. If you've worked hard and you invested your time and your money, there's no reason for you not to register your dogs unless you're hiding something or your dogs are not registered. Um, I like looking at pedigrees. I know you can't base your decision just on a pedigree. You have to look at the dog in front of you, but I like seeing what's behind my dogs. I like, seeing where they come from and the similarities in them. And, the more we've gone down this road, the more we're included in the pedigrees, which sounds like super silly, but it's really cool to look back at your own progress and see, knowing the dogs. Like, I can safely say that I've personally I personally know probably 80% of the dogs in every single one of my pedigrees. Either I've seen them in person or I know enough about them that I feel like I have a very good idea of what they look like. And I think that's important. I think, to know where you're going in life, you have to know where you come from. So it doesn't, it's not foolproof. Like I said, I mean, you can take two dogs with the exact same pedigree and they can look totally different. But, if you're going to breed, if you're going to establish yourself, if there's no reason for you not to register your dogs, there's absolutely none whatsoever.
How important is the show ring for you and your program? Are you actively showing your dogs? Is it still a thing, or was it just something to establish what you were trying to do?
So we did it a lot in the beginning. Like I said, then we took a hiatus, and that was mostly because there wasn't a lot available around us. And as for reasons previously mentioned, us traveling for extended periods of time is not always feasible, especially, all of us together. Usually one of us goes to shows and the other person stays home, which is fine. But, in the last, I'd say year, at least year and a half, um, we've seen a lot more shows in Canada. Before that, there were quite a few also, but we hosted them, so it wasn't really appropriate for us to show our own dogs. Now that we're able to show in registries and that we have nothing to do with the shows and we can just attend as participants, it's been fun to be back in the ring. It's been fun to see dogs that we've produced in the ring. And it's a good feeling. I don't think any one thing is a deciding factor. Like, I don't think I'll ever just have show dogs or just have working dogs, or but I like to see dogs taken out of their element. So, our dogs live on our property. They live a very sheltered lifestyle. They only see each other all day, every day. So it's neat to see, in terms of temperament, in terms of personality, how they can go out into a totally new situation, and sometimes they do very well and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they absolutely bomb, and that's okay. That's part of the learning experience. But it's nice to be a part of the community. I think it's twofold. It's, yes, titling your dogs is important because, of course, if you're championing out your dogs, that has a meaning, that has a value, it has a it's validating as a breeder, and it's super nice to see. Oh, hey, cutie. I got a little glimpse of the Frenchie there. It's super validating, to go out and have other people appreciate your dogs. And it's, for us as people, that networking and those relationships that we build with other breeders. And obviously at shows you have all other breeds, right? Like, we're not just Shorty Bowl people. There's actually only us and Barb Thompson here in Canada that shows. So Barb and I are always together and we hang out and we show, and she usually wins, and it's amazing. Like, I love it. I'm super happy for her. She actually has a new ABKC champion, Maverick, and so Maverick is out of our stud and her female. So that one was really special for us, like we watched her campaign the dog. We watched her in Caitlin, who owns Maverick, do it together. And, it's totally their hard work and their win. But I mean, we played a role in it. We helped create this little monster. So, to us, that's fun. And I'm happy to encourage other people, and I'm happy to support people who are doing a good job. I don't see it as competition. I see it as an opportunity to work with someone. And even with other breeds, I mean, a lot of them obviously have American bullies or exotic bullies, if you're going to the BRC, those kinds of things. And those are all people that maybe somewhere down the road you want to work with them. Maybe they know of someone that wants a shorty. Maybe they, if if nothing else, when they go out in their life and they see a shorty, then they think of us and they think, oh yeah, I know what a shorty bull is. And that's cool. I think building those connections, and we often feel like we're in our own little bubble where there's dogs and dogs and dogs and more dogs. So to go out and obviously talk about dogs, and it's all about dogs, but it's nice to be around people that are like-minded. It's nice to learn from them because everyone has experiences. Everyone goes through different things. And from one breed to the next, it might vary, but a lot of the things are similar. I mean, our struggles are similar, and our strengths are similar too. So, I'm glad I took a break for a while from the show ring because I needed it for whatever reason. But um, like Barb and I are planning to go to Allentown in January. Like that's something that, is going to be really fun because we don't ever see a lot of American shorty bulls at our shows. We're used to seeing each other. So, um, we want to go down and support the show and show off our dogs. I mean, it's a fun opportunity. I think it's something that people should try at least once. If you're into dogs, if you know why not? You know what? Nothing bad's gonna happen. Worst case, it's gonna be a good laugh. Like I've
Mm,
had dogs that poop in the ring. I mean, whatever. It is what it is. Like it happens.
mm.
But go out and do it. At least make the effort. And I think that that's also a frustration that I have because I see lots of other breeders, oh, selling puppies, doing this, but they never participate in anything. And I think that that's really unfortunate.
Could you talk about the people that are interested in shortables? They can look up the standards online and they're easily accessible. But what to you is an ideal shorty bull? And when you're pairing two together, what are you trying to accomplish on your yard, and what are your specific standards within the standard that you guys are operating under with these registries?
I think my ideal shorty bowl has morphed a lot over the years. Um, I don't think I've quite accomplished it yet. We have a female named Maxine that we produced with Devil Mountain in partnership. She's probably my biggest accomplishment. She's tiny, she's compact, she has personality for days, and she's blue. And you know, she's my girl. So I think she's probably come the closest. And it's always rewarding when you produce the dog. Like I purchased Romo from Shorty Bull Inc. many years ago. He's my heart dog. If you follow me on Instagram, I always say I don't have favorites. I do. I mean, Romo is the love of my life. He always will be. Um, I've never bred him. I don't have one puppy off of Romo. I just have Romo, and you know, my husband loves Cascadia, and that's his dog, and so we all have ideas of what we love. I think when we do breedings, we sort of so because we have a lot of dogs now that are older, we're now faced with the reality of, okay, this is so and so's last litter. So we need our next generation. So we were very sort of methodical in that because we wanted obviously we retire our females a lot sooner than we retire our males. So when we knew we were retiring Cascadia, for example, um, you know, we wanted a female like her. We Cascadia is on the bigger side, which personally I don't mind for a female because I think they carry babies and pregnancy very very well. Um, she's still well under the standard, but for my idea, she's bigger, and that's okay. I love her, but that's like if I'm being real, that's the one thing that we wanted to improve on was her size. Um, so we bred her to the Matrix, that is a very small, compact blue male. And from that, we got Viana. So Viana is very much her mother, but improved. And so she was also the only female in the litter. So it's not like she gave us much choice, but she turned out absolutely beautiful. Um, the same for Neo is the Matrix. We call him Neo, but um, he's 6 actually today. Today's his birthday. So we've been selective in the last couple breedings that we've done with him to keep a male, so that we always fear that, what if something happens? What if, the what ifs are lengthy in the breeding world. So we want to make sure that we have options. So we have kept a couple males back from Neo over the years. And now that all of these puppies that we kept, it's like in the blink of an eye, they're all now mature. They're all now our next generation. And we didn't even really see it happening. It kind of just happened. Um, and it occurred to me when people started asking me recently, because they wanted to reserve puppies for 2024, and they're asking me what I'm doing. And that's when it struck me. I'm like, we're breeding all of these dogs that we kept. Like, what was our foundation for everything that we worked for? That was like the culmination of it. So I think no matter what I end up doing next year, I think I'm going to see if I played my cards right. So it's no pressure on myself, but I'm gonna see if I made the right choices. You know, I think in terms of temperament, I think in terms of personality, we have it pretty much locked down. Like there's no Shorty bull that I have that I do not like their personality. Or I mean, some have quirks, but whatever. They're dogs. They're bulldogs. But there's not one that I don't like. There's not one that I can't tolerate. So I think it's just sort of working to maybe make them a little bit more compact, because that is more of a desirable trait if you're looking at showing. If you're looking at, it's not necessarily what people ask for. Um, Honestly, in my experience, people have kind of just taken what I had. I mean, and truthfully, I don't mean this in a bad way, but I don't breed for anyone else. I really like, even if there are people waiting, even if people want a certain thing, I don't do it for them. And I love my clients dearly. They know this, but I do it for me because I keep puppies off of every litter. I, watch them grow and then decide what I'm going to do. But um, I know this is a very long answer to your question, and I apologize, but I think we're at a place where we can just work on the size of the dog. I think everything else is there. I mean, they're healthy, they're happy, their temperament is bang on. They all have beautiful colors. Now I think we just tweak a little bit. And I'm, knock on wood, like watch the whole thing go totally awry here next year. But I'm, oh, it's cuddle time with someone else. Oh my gosh. Okay. I love it. So yeah, I think it's just sort of fine tuning, I think is probably the better term of what we've done. I purchased a dog from Oscar this past summer, Periwinkle, who's a blue male, who I've not shown a whole lot of, purposely, but I think he's going to knock a lot of socks off. And that's something that I'm super excited to include in our program. So it'll be adding him, and it'll be just seeing what our girls can do, and see what, you know, if they bring to the table everything that I expect them to, um, I think we'll be in a very good position. I think I think now it's something that we'll consider a little bit more. It's, if we go back 2, 3, 4 years ago, it wasn't really on our radar because we weren't really doing it. I think the show ring expects a dog with a certain mass, a certain substance, and I think that is super important because that is a huge part of what the Shorty Bowl is. Um, I think again that doesn't take away necessarily from the fact that they're athletic. I think of dogs like the Matrix, who's super tiny, super compact, but you give him any type of ball and he's, watch out world. I mean, he'll destroy it. And that's fine. I mean, there are dogs that don't have the personality for a show ring, and that's fine too. But it is something, that I'm going to look at including a little bit more. And that's why I kept a male off of Neo, his past litter, little baby Elvis. Females are hard to show because they come into heat and they have litters, and it's a much longer road when you show a female versus if you show a male. And I would like, ideally, like any breeder, to show dogs that I produce. I think that that's, a big part of it. So I think, that'll be something that we'll keep in mind, and we will be showing Elvis. That was definitely something that I wanted to do from the get go. Um, and I think, it's just waiting to see how they mature. And um, I mean, if you look at Maverick is the perfect mix of his mom and the perfect mix of his dad, and he just got it. And actually, Barb kept two, Maverick and Frankie, and they're both very similar in a lot of ways, and they got the best of both worlds. um, I think the dog's temperament in the show ring does play a lot, and that's where, our dogs are they're a little feral. They don't walk on leashes at home. They have property, they have fenced in yards. I mean, they don't need to, and that work is on us. I feel like our failures in the show ring are 100% human related and not so much about the dog. But like I said, it's a learning experience for us too. But we did show Maxine last year, and she did really, really well, surprisingly, because she's that's totally new for her. But she was good. Um, and yeah, I think it should be a consideration no matter what. I mean, none of our dogs are out of standard, so by definition, technically any of them could show. But you see kind of that evolution too. Like I watch the winners from other shows, and that kind of gives me also a good idea of where we stand, what we should put in the ring. I mean, it's it's strategic also. Like you kind of, you go in there to show off your best, and everyone does. Everyone comes ready to win, and that's super important. um Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of competition here in Canada, so it's not like we know who wins, we know who does well, but it'll be interesting to go and compete against American dogs and kind of see, you know, just having more than, one or two or three dogs in a ring will be fascinating to me because that's been our reality for so long. Um, but I don't think, I personally, like, I can't speak for anyone else, but I don't take it as a bad experience whether we win or lose. Everyone wants to win. That's a fact of life. But you know, doing it and showing off your hard work at the end of the day still means something. So if you come home with a ribbon and a trophy, that's awesome. And if you don't, then you still had a great time, and your dogs learn a lot constantly. And I think it's super important, even now for younger dogs, that I'm going to make the effort of bringing them out younger, because I think the sooner you expose them to that kind of environment, the more comfortable they're going to be as adults. And I think that that's maybe something that we didn't have the opportunity to do in the past. So I'm excited to be able to do that. And it's also why I don't want to have 10 litters a year. I don't want, to get into that. I want to go out and show my dogs and enjoy that part of them. And it's huge for a relationship with a dog. I mean, to be able to build that trust and that sort of interaction with them is super important. And it's something that we do every day at home, but doing it outside of the home, traveling with your dog, like that's a whole other experience in itself.
Yeah, for sure. It's no easy task, is it? Especially when you're going hundreds of miles away from home.
I see it as a vacation. I'm
Yeah,
super happy.
yeah, yeah, no doubt. So talk about the diet that you feed your dogs. I'm always interested with, especially asking bull breed type people what they feed their dogs, because I just know how sensitive all my English bulldogs in the past have been with their diets.
Another very controversial question. So I feed my dogs very boring, plain kibble, um, mostly chicken base, and they love it. And my dogs probably would eat cardboard if given the opportunity. They are very food driven. Um, they'll eat anything, honestly. They really, we've been stuck in situations where, like, we live in a more rural area, so sometimes what we need isn't available or isn't delivered, and we just have to grab whatever else is there. And they don't react badly to it. And some of our dogs are older, and I thought that maybe as they got older, they would have more sensitive stomachs, or they would have, like sometimes they get mushy poop or things like that. And they really do well, I think. Even our puppies start off obviously on a puppy formula, but it's still kibble. It's still, it's not fancy. um we've tried various things over the years. I mean, there's, we do have the consideration of we're feeding X amount of dogs per day. So, I mean, we go through a lot of food. So we had to find something that as much as possible suited at least all of the adults. I mean, managing a puppy formula and an adult formula is fine, but when you start having five, six, and I know people who have five, six different kinds of food and different kinds of diets for their dogs, and that just becomes extremely complicated. But Shorty Bulls seem to, for the most part, withstand, you know, most types of food very well. So, I mean, we've been lucky in that area. I do give my dogs a lot of supplements. Like, I very much, another controversial thing, but I very much believe in like naturally supplementing your dogs versus more like the vaccination chemical route. So I do, give them a lot of probiotics, give them a lot of immune boosters, just natural products that are, super common now, super easy to find. But I've done it over the years, and I think, hopefully it's made a difference. Maybe it's played a part in, them not having issues. But yeah, it's not complicated. It's kibble and water and fresh air and sunshine. That's been the magic formula. Before the puppies are even born, the things that you're feeding to the mom do play a role. And things like allergies are and intolerances can be genetic, not always, but they can be. So the sweet potato salmon is a no-brainer. I think a lot of people use that, and rightfully so. I mean, I do alternate between a chicken and a fish formula depending on kind of how I feel. I mean, there's no like magical reason to it. Um, but I do think, it's important that they try different proteins. And I do it with the puppies too, because if they're going to have a reaction to something, I would rather they have it while I have them and I can sort of know and manage it and give, whoever's getting a puppy a heads up. Um, but those are kind of the two, like we've tried lamb and rice. We try them all because why not? I mean, our dogs do well on them, and varying proteins is important. If your dogs can, obviously, if your dog can't support it, then you don't. You stick to what works. But if you want to try things out, and there's the pet industry is a billion-dollar industry, right? So there's constantly new products coming out. There's constantly new types of food and freeze dried, and like anything exists now. Like if you can think it, they've created it. So I mean, I think there's no right or wrong answer. I think it's finding what works for you, what your dogs like and what your dogs thrive on. I mean, our dogs, obviously we're in Canada. We have lots and lots of winter. Hasn't arrived yet, surprisingly, but we get really cold days. We get a lot of snow. Our dogs still go outside, so they do need to maintain a certain body weight to withstand the colder days. They're obviously not outside for extended periods of time, but even so, like even our house gets colder. Like the heat is on, but it's still cold. That's just how it is. But so we do like feed them more, for example, in the winter months because they need that extra body fat to just be able to sustain the cold in the winters. Um, but once you find what you're comfortable with, and I've learned also that every area is different. Like sometimes it's harder to get certain types of food. For example, we sell a lot of puppies to the United States. Well, sometimes the foods that we use aren't available there. They're Canadian brands and they just don't exist. So you have to find whatever's closest to it. But it is important, like you said, to ask what your dogs were eating, what the parents of your dogs were eating, because that's usually a really good place to start. And I notice a lot of people have issues when they start changing foods. So if it works, just stick with it. Just ride it out and that's the best for your dog in the long run, no matter what it is, no matter how good or bad it is. If your dog does well on it, there's no reason for you to change it. We are, but we're so bombarded with information. I mean, from all sides, from you walk into the pet store and it's like there's hundreds of kinds of food and treats and supplements and I mean, like don't even get me started on the raw. Like there's so many options and I can see why people get overwhelmed. And that's why I just plead with people to just stick with something very simple. Stick with what is working. And the trends will pass. I mean, some brands are better than others. We all know that. But what works for one person maybe doesn't work for the other and vice versa. And that's the thing, like environmental allergies are huge. I mean, it's not everyone blames chicken, but it's not always the chicken. It's there's so much more to it than that. There's even like there's a lot of health issues that are linked to ingredients in your kibble too. So it is important to research that a little bit and understand, the things that can be harmful. Because unfortunately, not all pet foods are formulated with your dog's best interest. That's just unfortunately the facts. I mean, if you have breeding dogs, it's different than you have if you have a pet dog. If your dog is spayed or neutered, it's not going to react the same to food than if it's intact. Um, but it's just once you find that balance, you know, just go with it. And then if like you said, like people move so you might have to adapt. You'll have to adapt your quantities of food depending on your climate. In the summertime, I always say that Canadian dogs are built really, really tough because we have super cold winters and super hot summers. But in the summer, sometimes we feed our dogs twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. In the summertime, we'll often just feed them one time, either super early before it gets hot or late at night when it cools down, because they just don't assimilate food in the same way when it's very warm versus the winter, where we do give extra portions and extra supplements just to keep their immune systems good so that they don't have to, on top of dealing with a cold climate and snow. I mean, they're shorty bulls. Like when it snows, they're like, you can look at my Instagram, they're covered in snow. There's ears poking out. And we my husband like plows a little circle so they all go around in the little circle. But you have to keep that in mind. And I think you have to watch your dogs. And a lot of people, I don't know why this is lost on them, but you see dogs that are extremely underweight or overweight, and I think to myself, how did you not notice? I like there's a change there. So if there's a change, you have to adapt. I mean, if you're breeding your female, it's different than if you're not. There's so many variables. um, but like if we're talking about breeders and not pet homes, like if you're specifically talking about a breeder, you need to be able to deal with those things. You need to be able to understand nutrition. And as breeders, we have to become all of these things. We have to be a social media coordinator, and we have to be a dog nutritionist, and we have to be a little bit of a vet tech, and we have to be a coach and be an athlete, and we have to do all of, and a groomer. You have to be a groomer, so you have to do all of these things. And if you're not willing to do that, then just truthfully just get out of the way. Just move on to something else, because it's so encompassing. And you can't play with a dog's health. You can't let your dog get overweight. You can't let it get underweight. You can't not properly feed a pregnant female. Like those are all really basic things. And the food discussion, I think, is a really important one. And it's not one that we necessarily hear a lot. So I'm glad you brought it up. But it's such a vital part of, if you're going to have success, if your dogs are going to remain healthy and be able to reproduce, they have to have the nutrients. It's like us. If you eat fast food every day, that's great. I love fast food, but it's not a viable option. You're not gonna be at your peak health then, if you actually pay attention to what you're putting in your body. So I mean, dogs are no different. Yeah, so generally speaking, they get fed twice a day. We're talking about adult dogs. The puppies are a different routine. So in the morning and in the evening, they get a portion. In the warm winter months, the warm winter months, no, the warm summer months, they sometimes get fed just once a day, just because the heat is really sometimes too much. So we tend to let them out very early in the day and very late in the day, just to make sure that they're not, you know, they're still bulldogs. I mean, they do well in the heat for the most part, but that's not something that I really want to play around with and risk. So I would rather just make sure that they're safe. And then they digest differently. Obviously when it's super warm, their digestive systems are not reacting the same as a normal day. The same goes with the cold. I mean, they're burning calories just by keeping themselves warm. So, it's important to make sure that they have, those two meals. And like I said, I bump them up a little bit at this time of year just to make sure that, as long as my dog physically stays the same, then I'm happy. Whatever that means in terms of portions, I mean, I don't really care, as long as no matter the time of year, the dog physically looks the same, then that means they're getting everything that they need.
Hmm. Just a couple more questions for you, and then we'll wrap it up. Where do you see your program in, say, 5 or 10 years? Where do you want it to be?
That's a very good question. And I might watch this 5 or 10 years from now and think I was totally off track. Um, I think I'm very happy with the direction that we're going in. Um, I would like to see that amplified. I have big dreams. I would like more space. I would like to keep more dogs. Um, my husband is not going to be happy when this eventually hits the internet, but I want I want us to keep going on the path that we're on. I mean, I'm happy with the people that we're working with. I'm happy with the dogs that we're creating. Um, I mean, it's fine tuning that look, and it's maintaining it. I think you know people sort of sometimes have a couple nice litters and sit back and think, oh, okay, I'm done. Um, that's not the case. I know, just because of how the breed was originally created, you can get throwbacks. You can get this random stuff come out that you were never in a million years expecting. Um, it's just to work with that. I know that 5-10 years from now, a lot of the dogs that I have now are not going to be around anymore. And part of that is going to be dealing with that reality. It's going to be grieving, a whole generation of what we've done. And hopefully we've held enough back to get us through the next 10 years. And, this sounds super corny, but the last decade gone went by in a split second. I mean, I look at, my dogs, and like I remember most of their birthdays, so I kind of, I make sure to like somewhat immortalize it. And I look, and sometimes I have to look back on the paper where I'm like, no, you can't be 7. Like, we just got you. And, a lot of people, and we haven't talked about this, but I think it's an important part. Like, a lot of people ask us why we have so many dogs. Why don't we rehome our dogs when we're done breeding them? Why don't we pet home them? Why don't, and we do sometimes. I mean, I can kind of count them on one hand. But these dogs are a part of our family. They're a part of our life. And yes, that's extra work. It's extra mouths to feed. But people don't realize, like, we've raised these puppies their whole entire lives. They've been our dogs. So it's very hard for us to say, okay, we're done, you can go now. I mean, that's not the kind of people that we are. And so I think that's why keeping dogs back to us has been extra special, because we have watched them grow up alongside their parents and their grandparents. And I want to continue doing that. If nothing else, I want to continue the way that we have been. I think we can do better. I mean, everyone can always do better. I think we can breed more consistently, and I think that we will, because we've sort of funneled down. We started very broad because we sort of liked a whole bunch of stuff, and now we've brought it down to a point where our dogs look more the same. And I think that that's something that we're going to continue to strive for, is that consistency. That's what everyone hopes for, and that's the ultimate goal. um we've done a lot in terms of color, and it's not the end all be all, but it is a big part of who we are. I do want to try dog. I'm putting it out there in the universe. That's something that I'm definitely aiming for next year. So hopefully 5-10 years down the road, we're still around. We're still doing this. I mean, I can't imagine, maybe not to the scale that we're doing it now. We did bring our numbers down over the years, but I think we'll always do it. I think we'll always be known for doing it. And I hope that we can encourage and support other people to get into the breed. We didn't really talk about this a lot, but I don't work with a lot of breeders. I don't sell many dogs with breeding rights. I pick and choose those situations. And when I do go that route, I think it's super important to have a contact and a connection with that person so that you can work together. For whatever reason, for them and for us to kind of see how that evolves. And all of that. So, I'm hoping that eventually, we've aligned ourselves with the right people as well, and we can watch other people grow with our dogs. We can watch other programs benefit from things that we've created. So I mean, I would like to see more than that. I would like to see the quality, especially in Canada. I would like to see the quality go up. Um, I think a lot of people can and should step up their game. And we'll see in time if maybe we can support them in doing that. And I do try to be transparent. I'm a very open book. I said this to you when you first approached me. I mean, I don't I want people to learn from our experiences, whether they're good or bad. I mean, I don't want to watch people struggle. There's no fun in that for me. Um, I want I want people to say good things about us, and that doesn't necessarily mean that we make money off of that. That just means I want people to have connections and relationships with them, and for you to go off, and if you buy a Shorty Bull in the future, then you know that you've bought the best dog because you've researched it and you've talked to enough people and you've gathered all the information. And to me, that's important because I want to see good Shorty Bulls being produced, whether it's me or someone else doing it. That doesn't matter. I want to see good quality dogs. I want to see them out in the world. I still to this day would love to walk down the sidewalk in any random city and see a Shorty Bull, like you see a golden retriever, and be like, oh my God, that's a Shorty Bull. Now, if it happens, I sort of like, I'm taken off guard because I'm so not used to seeing Shorty Bulls. Um, but I think that that's something that's important, is to just promote the breed and promote it in the right ways, promote it in a positive fashion, and to have people like you that have discovered this little gem of a dog and want to know more. I think that's super important for the breed to grow.
For sure. And if I 100% agree, and I think there's sometimes a tendency in the dog game where people want to hold back their stock, and they're really like secretive, and they don't want people to get a hold of it, and they don't want people to advance that. I understand it because it's your hard work and all your effort, but at the same time, like, uh, it's maybe at the betterment of the breed and the community as a whole that sometimes you let some of your gems go and take a risk and be willing to lose, just like you would if you were, say, purchasing a puppy from another kennel to put in your program.
Yeah.
It's no guarantee, and so I just see.
No, and
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that sometimes maybe taking that same risk, but with the customer, and saying, well, you know, they have some good thoughts. I like who they are. They like what they're saying, and let me give them a shot, and I'll give them this nice dog. And not only will I promote my breed, but I'll promote my kennel. Uh,
Yep.
and I know a lot of times people have been burned, and it's easy for me to say as a consumer and not a breeder, where your hard work goes down the drain, and this person kind of makes you feel like they stabbed you in the back. I know it's really a difficult thing, but we all take risks, especially when you're dealing with livestock, and dogs are livestock, in my opinion. So,
Yep. And what you say is very true, and I think that's why, I mean, my vision of it over the years has changed. And at the end of the day, somewhere down the line, someone took a chance on me, and I'm really grateful for that. And if I can pass that on to someone else, I definitely will. I'm still, I think I'll always ask probably too many questions to people. um at the end of the day, I want my dogs to be taken care of. If you want to breed it, then I trust that you're going to breed it to something that is worthwhile. And it doesn't hurt anyone to give people a chance and give people an opportunity, like you said. um luckily, the backstabbings have been minimal. There's been a few, but interestingly enough, it's always people that you think are your friends that end up hurting you more than strangers. So I mean, those are life lessons too. But if someone comes to me and wants a stud or wants to get into breeding, I'm all ears. And I would much rather see that than the things that I don't like are people that message me that don't say hi and write price tag with a question mark. Like, I'm not interested in that. Like, that's not a conversation I'm going to entertain. But recently I've gotten to know quite a few people who are starting out in Shorty bulls who have really good ideas, and if they can keep the vision that they have now, they're going to do really amazing things, and I want to be there to support that. And like you said, someone who loves your program and wants to take one of your dogs and promote it, I mean, that's the best business model out there. I mean, when you have happy customers that are showing off your dog, that speaks more than anything else you'll ever do. I mean, I can sit here for the next 5 years and tell you that I love my dogs and I think they're great, but coming from a client, I mean, that says a whole lot more to me. But I think in the long run, I mean, it's an investment like anything else. I mean, the market is what it is, but I think you build connections with people, and you eventually, I think you still come out on top. I think if you align yourself with people who have similar visions and interests as you're gonna end up a winner. I mean, I just recently sold a female to someone and with breeding rights, and as we got to know each other and as we got to talking, I said, look, I said, if you want to breed her down the line, I said, I'll offer you a good deal on a stud, because it would mean a lot to me if you came back and we could work together, or even do a pup back, or things like that. And I think that that's definitely something that is worth exploring. I think, not that I would necessarily do it with 20 people a year, but I think sometimes you meet the right people at the right moment in time, and it's an opportunity for everyone. And so yeah, I mean, and it's something to look forward to. I mean, it's easy for us to get kind of stuck in our everyday, like, nose to the ground doing our work, but to hear from other people and hear different perspectives, I think we know a lot. We've done this a long time. We don't know everything. We're still learning, and we can still learn from other people.
Uh, is cropped ears necessary in Shorty bulls?
It's my favorite question. That and the health testing one. Those are my favorite questions. Um, it is the breed standard. It is, to me, very important. Um, it's kind of a non-negotiable thing as far as I'm concerned. Um, the dogs that I showcase that do not have crops are for two reasons. One, I had the first female I kept, Lil Kim, doesn't have cropped ears because at the time I lived in Montreal and it was banned in the province of Quebec. So she has her natural ears that are like little Frenchy ears. Um, she's the only dog that I ever kept that I did not crop, and it was for that very specific reason. Um, if I sell a puppy and the client doesn't want the dog cropped, I ask that the puppy be chosen and paid for prior to my ear crop appointment, because it's very hard after a certain age to get a puppy cropped. So far, that has gone very well. Everyone has been very understanding of that. And they love their puppies the way that they are. They're dogs that are strictly pet home, non breeding. Um, they are all neutered. I think they're all males actually, except for Lil Kim. Um, so, and that's part of it. If you want a dog for breeding purposes, your dog absolutely has to be cropped. I prefer to do the crops myself before the puppies leave. It's more time and money, obviously, on our part, but I think as breeders, it's important to uphold the standard. I think even just from a logistical perspective, if anything were to go wrong, I would much rather it be on me than someone bringing a new puppy home and having issues. Um, I know our vet does an excellent job, and the ears are always nice. They're always, they heal up nicely. The dogs don't have any issues. So I consider that to be my responsibility as a breeder, unless otherwise asked by the client. But I get them cropped. And if for whatever reason a puppy is not spoken for at the age of the ear crop, I get it cropped anyway. Because, I mean, it's a shorty bull. It has to have a crop. Um, I know some people don't crop for reason XYZ. I don't see the reasoning behind it, and I know there's no bad answer. People do whatever they want, um, but to me, it's a no brainer, and it's pretty non-negotiable.
I'm sure they have some troubles in Europe being able to do that sort of thing.
They
So,
do. So, but that's another thing, though. I know in some places it's banned. So, if people like we sell a lot of dogs outside of Ontario, obviously. And I know that for some people it's hard to find a veterinarian that'll crop the ears, or in some places you just, like you said, flat out can't do it. And that's why to me it's that much more important to get it done for them. So that when the puppy leaves, it's exactly the way that it's supposed to be. It's exactly, it has
mhm,
the look that it's supposed to have, and it can go. I mean, those laws don't say you can't have a crop dog. It just says you can't crop the dog's ears there, which is
mhm,
fine. If you purchase the dog from somewhere else and it's cropped, that's a non-issue. I don't want, people doing it um, with a bad vet that ends up, a horrible crop will ruin a dog. You can take the nicest dog. If you give it horrible ears, you've just totally ruined it. Or even, like dogs getting cropped on kitchen tables. I mean, I hear it all the time. Um, you know, it's frightening to me. But, I know that my crops are done well. I know that my dogs are safe. I know that they recover well. Um, and then the people receive the puppy exactly as it's intended to be.
if you had all the time, the money, and the space, you didn't have to worry about any of that. What would be the second breed that you would breed?
That's a very interesting question. Um, I don't actually. The first breed that comes to mind is, I think it's called a Saluki. It's a very. Do you know what that is?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like you you see them running in the desert.
Hmm.
Um, I'm fascinated by those dogs, and it's the most random. Like it's a very far cry from a Shorty Bull. Um, I'm just fascinated. Not sure what I would do with it. Not sure, if it would even it might not survive in Canada, but I think they're just a cool breed. I mean, I've owned other breeds. Like I said, I've had American Bulldogs. I still have oldies that are old, and they oldies that are old. That's funny, but they watch over our shorties. I mean, we've had exotics, we've had American Bullies. Um, they're all very similar kind of in type and personality. So I think if I had, not a care in the world, I would probably go for something totally different. Um, and, just something that I know absolutely nothing about.
I
Consider joining our Patreon community to access exclusive content, early releases, and personalized experiences. Subscribing not only supports Sean from the Bulldog Social Club, but also connects you with a community of like-minded enthusiasts. Whether you enjoy Sean's interviews, appreciate creative processes, or desire exclusive perks, your subscription plays a crucial role. Click the link, subscribe, and be a part of this journey with us. Do you enjoy listening to audio podcasts like I do? Consider joining the Bulldog Social Club Spotify membership. For a limited time, it's only $1.99. Get early releases and personalized experiences. Subscribing not only supports Sean from the Bulldog Social Club, but also connects you with a community of like-minded enthusiasts. Whether you enjoy Sean's interviews, appreciate creative processes, or desire exclusive perks, your subscription plays a crucial role. Click the link, subscribe, and be a part of this journey with us.